Hello everyone, you welcome to the program. I am Babla Jonathan. Calls for massive registration of Cameroonians of voting age continue rising to the sky from political leaders of the opposition, in particular from bishops, civil society leaders, political observers, commentators, opinion leaders, and political analysts. Calls are going up to the sky. Cameroonians urged to register and vote when the time comes, that is next year, in the hope of a change, notably at the helm of the state. And young persons in particular, especially those who had become disappointed, discouraged with the whole situation, pessimistic and hopeless because of the prevailing situation of their country, described by analysts as precarious, seem to be gaining momentum. These ones also seem to be gaining momentum to go and register, to get a voter's card, and to move out of passive into active politics. The wind of change moving from Senegal, where recently 44-year-old Bassirou Diomaye Diakhar took over the helm of the state, seemed to be moving into the nooks and crannies of Cameroon. Political parties of the opposition, including the Cameroon Renaissance Movement political party, the Popular Action Party, are on the ground canvassing for registration as they gather momentum to unseat the BR regime that's been in power for more than 4 decades now in 2025. We'll be analyzing all this in this edition of The Insight. Meet our guest in some few seconds. Thank you for staying with us. In this edition of The Inside, we are talking about the possibility of change, particularly at the helm of the state, in this edition of the program. And our guest today is a young politician. Fabrice Lena is one of the young and vibrant political leaders in Cameroon who have been braving the odds, braving a difficult political terrain, braving the fear of repression to be vocal on issues of national interest. He's a militant of the Popular Action Party. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Sir Babila, for having me as your guest for this special program, The Insight. I am glad to be your guest. I am looking forward to make meaningful contribution to this program that could edify the audience of this particular program, The Insight, and Cameroonians in general as to stakes about 2025.
You've been serving as Secretary General of the Popular Action Party for 4 years now, and before that you served as National Communications Secretary of the party for 2 years, and you've been member of the National Council of the PAP for 6 years. Now there's a new person who's been appointed, Jine Elvis Banet, to take over your position as Secretary General. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, the Popular Action Party is a very democratic political party. I'm proud to have militated in this party for 10 years, since 2014, when I realized I have to make meaningful contribution to nation building, to my country. And from 2014, I've held different positions in the Popular Action Party, like Secretary General of PAP Yaoundé 5 subdivision, like communication unit for the Popular Action Party, and then in 2019 appointed to the position of National Communication Secretary, and in 2020 as the Secretary General of the Popular Action Party, that I have served in this party until last Thursday 2024, that I've been replaced by the vibrant Jine Elvis Banet, that I encourage to take this position and also serve the party in that capacity. And within my capacity as the Secretary General of Popular Action Party, I have been able to realize projects visible to Cameroonians, including voters registration campaign, civic engagement and political participation of young people, recruitment of young people at the voting age of 20, those who could be candidates in local elections at the age of 23, and those who could be presidential candidates at the age of 35 to be members of the Popular Action Party. Of course, they are watching, and I salute all of them from the national territory.
Now, as of now, you're still the Secretary General of the party until when installation and proper handing over of the baton of command, as far as that position is concerned, will take place. Now, tell us more about your ambitions, probably your future ambitions, because you're still within the party. You're still a militant of the PAP, even though you're going to be handing over the baton of command as Secretary General to Elvis. Tell us more about your future ambitions.
Well, I have ambitions because the Popular Action Party is planning its convention in June 2024, and during this convention we are looking forward to voting a new national president of the Popular Action Party. So I am planning to contest for the position of the national president of the Popular Action Party, and for this reason I must drop my position as the Secretary General of the Popular Action Party before being eligible to submit my candidacy for being the national president of the Popular Action Party. I'm looking forward to present a new vision of the party and to respect the aspirations of the young people in this party, and of course Cameroonians, calling on young people to take the battle of command like it is in Senegal and other parts of Africa. I believe in Cameroon we are capable of changing the narrative if we have been able to brave the odds amidst the difficult conditions that you have hitherto mentioned in the country. We are also able to change it within our party as a form of internal democracy.
I was going to ask you if you are moved by the emergence of 44-year-old Bassirou Diomaye Faye to the position of President of the Republic of Senegal.
Of course, I am moved. I am moved because I'm one of those young people who started politics quite young. You can imagine in 2014, I was still in the university. And at this point, I had aspirations to start running for elections, to run for the position of municipal councillor or parliamentary elections. Unfortunately, the Anglophone crisis, the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest, prevented me from doing so because my aspirations were supposed to be for the 2018 and 2020 elections. However, I decided to commit myself to the party. And when I read through the political trajectory of Ousmane Sonko and also Faye, not limiting to them, but also of other young African leaders like Success Masra in Chad, who is also running for the President of the Republic on May 6th, and also other young people like Tashila Lungu in Zambia, and a couple of other young people of my age, my generation. I am inspired, I am motivated, I am moved to also take a bold step in Cameroon to be able to represent that wind of change blowing across the continent. Why not in Cameroon? Because whenever there is change of leadership in any African country, what happens is the finger is pointed to Cameroon. Cameroonians, what are you guys waiting for? Cameroonians, it's only you that's remaining. So we want to tell the world that we are ready to take this battle and to be at the helm of issues, to do things that will reflect the priorities of our generation, and to tell those who say the youth cannot lead that it's a wrong prejudice, it's a wrong stereotype, and we of course can manage the highest positions in our political party, and why not the state as the first citizen of the republic.
You talk with a lot of conviction and confidence, but when you look at the political terrain in Cameroon, as difficult as it is, what makes you so convinced, so persuaded that you can make it, you can become the next, I want to say, Bassirou Diomaye Faye of Cameroon?
Mr. Babila Jonathan.
Or better still, Fabrice Lena of Cameroon.
Mr. Babila Jonathan, thank you very much for that allusion. I think before you join politics in Cameroon, you must go and sit in a corner and do what we commonly call SWOT analysis of your own self. You have to do check of your strength. You have to do check of the weaknesses around you. You have to do check of the threats around the environment, and you have to do check of the opportunities that present themselves. And this will give you an overview of your own personality. Do you have the capacity? Do you have the charisma? Do you have what it takes to be inside this office at the level of the political party and be that person, that personality that could attract young people? I have done this analysis, and I can affirm to you that yes, Fabrice Lena have these characteristics from my previous engagement with young people throughout the national territory of Cameroon, from my hometown, Bali, to Bamenda, to Santa, through my engagements with young people in Boya, Limbe, and my area of residence, Yaoundé, to my regular meetings in Douala, and the workshops I've had in Maroua, in Beitoa. I have been able to move around this country, and I understand the mindset of the people, of young people in particular. I know that they are looking for that person that could electrify the crowd. They are looking for that person that could represent the true generation of the young people yearning for change. The early 2000s, the 1990s, the 1980s. This is the generation looking for that magic person. Why not myself? I think I have these capacities. This is why I am self-confident, and this is why I think I'm ready to take the bull by the horns and stand in front. If need be, I should receive the bullet.
If need be, you should receive the bullet.
Yes.
Wow. And you know, many young people today, they don't want to receive the bullet. That's what's problem. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's true.
Many of us,
it's because
we don't want to receive the bullet. Many of us, we are just saying, oh, I want to see my children grow.
Yeah, this is the notion.
I don't want to fight.
Yeah.
I don't want to stand up and claim my right and ask for this or that. And there have been calls from you of the opposition, from the PAP, from the CPP of Kabanwala Edit, asking Cameroonians to stand up and fight for change. But many are still pulling their legs and looking at the terrain, looking at the possible repression that they're going to face. Immediately they raise up their heads and so on and so forth.
Politics is not an environment for adventure. It's not an environment for cinema. It's an environment of people with liver, with courage, with the heart to dare, to stand up, to show their face, and to affirm and take responsibility for their words. And this is why I respect so much those people you call their names. I respect so much Madam Kawala. I respect so much Maurice Kamto. I respect so much Sidiki Abubakar. I respect so much Justice Aya on retirement. I respect so much Led Pendai Koka Christian. I respect President Jean Dennis. I respect these people because at one point or the other, they have stood up to say, this is what and how the country ought to be managed, and it is not going well. We think it should be managed otherwise, and that is why they come up either with a political agenda or an ideology or activities or projects to propose a substitutive means of how the country should be managed. I have a lot of respect for these people. My call to young people every day is that we cannot have change by complaining every day that the country is not good, it's not moving forward, that we are suffering. A lot of young people die in the Mediterranean, struggling to go and look for greener pastures in Europe. I have been to Europe. I've discussed with some of these young people. I've been to America. I've discussed with some of these young people. And I come to realize that if you do not overcome fear, then you cannot be a political leader, because fear is the greatest threat and obstacle for you to affirm your personality. No matter how intelligent and smart you are, if you cannot nurse the courage to overcome fear, then you cannot be in the political cycle. But we must not confuse this with what we call civic and political rights, because many people do think that voting is making you a politician. No, you are simply exercising your political right enshrined in the Cameroon Constitution and affirmed in the Electoral Code of Cameroon. These are documents open for Cameroonians to consult, read, and understand so they can affirm their rights. So in a country, there are citizens, there are politicians, and everyone needs to know his or her own right and know the role to play. This is why if someone is informed enough, I am sure you will know where you belong and you will play your role effectively. And we will not overemphasize the need for change if people are mobilized to that extent that everyone knows how to balance their roles and responsibilities.
It is often said that if you are not informed, you're deformed.
Exactly.
And God says in the Holy Scriptures that my people die because of lack of knowledge.
Exactly.
And this knowledge is what we are bringing to the people now. But the difficulty now is to act on the knowledge, is to act on the information that we have received. And that's where it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
Pretty difficult for many who are looking at the terrain and looking at the environment and saying, but how can I go about this? How can I downplay these things and move on and break into new grounds and brave the challenges? How can I do like Fabrice Lena?
Well, I always say that there is no magic. It is commitment, passion, and desire for change. I'm coming from a background where, we grow up with a lot of contradictions. And these contradictions harness me to fight for the weak, to the extent that my tranquility is disturbed by the unacceptable. And when this kind of condition presents itself to me in my environment, in my country, I am obliged to take an action. It is not sufficient, Mr. Babila, to make declarations on media like it happens in our context. But it is important to go to the field, to talk with the people, to try to recruit people, into my political party, encourage them to have their voters card, but not only limited to encouraging them to have their voters card, but to make them understand the Cameroon electoral calendar. According to electoral code from the previous elections, we have the presidential elections in October 2018, and it is a 7-year mandate, which means that every active Cameroonian is supposed to understand by October 2025 we are having presidential elections. And for every citizen having public concern, they should know we had last legislative and municipal elections, what we call in Cameroon twin election, in February 2020, and we will be having the next couple of municipal and legislative elections in February 2025. Knowing the electoral calendar permits you to know how to situate yourself as a citizen, know how to use your voter's card, and it also permits you to go beyond understanding electoral calendar to start understanding the institutions that manage election in Cameroon. We have ELECAM, which is in charge with organizing the election itself and making sure that it passed in a very good condition. And then we have the Constitutional Council that is in charge with declaring the results of election and validating the candidature of candidates. So these informations are all in the Electoral Code and the Constitution of Cameroon. But believe me, many young people of the voting age 20 and above, of candidature age 23 for parliamentary and municipal, 35 for presidential, do not know these things. So they just complain in the general group belief, my voice don't count, my votes don't count, it will not affect any change. You do not have the legal, the moral, and the legitimate right to complain if you have not participated in the process as a young person, which means your complaint do not make any sense. Of course, after participating, you have a synchrony between your conscience and the words from your mouth. I have participated, therefore I'm complaining because my experience made a negative outcome. Responsibility goes now to those people who stole your vote.
You cannot complain that your vote has been rigged.
Exactly.
Or one thing or the other.
Exactly. So at that point, you have the right to complain because you participated, and then you have a synchrony, like your conscience is telling you, yes, I am saying so because I did participated. So you do not need to limit yourself with understanding of you need to understand what the voting process in Cameroon is all about. You need to understand the institutions involved. You need to understand political parties and political actors. You need to do background check of these political actors. You need to know what they are doing, the agenda they are presenting, you know. Of course, when I go to the field, I tell young people, hey, it is time for us to start from the basis, to start from the grassroots. It is time for us to vote only federalist candidates into office, because this is my political agenda. This is the political agenda of my political party. Therefore, if we vote municipal councillors that are pro-federalist, parliamentarians that are pro-federalist, then we can start having this conversation at the level of the National Assembly, and then we can start pushing for reforms to form of state.
You will tell us a little more about that federalist perspective of the whole thing. But first, there seems to be a kind of a dark cloud, a thick cloud of impossibility over many Cameroonians today. There's a politician, I don't want to mention his name here, he said that even if Jesus Christ, the Son of God, comes to compete in this present system, he cannot unseat the Biya regime. He cannot succeed against the Biya regime. And this is how much impossibility has been built up around the present situation, around the present system. You were talking about the political system, the institution organizing elections, ELECAM, and all the other institutions and so on. In this present system, what can you say about this cloud of impossibility, this idea of impossibility that seems to be hindering many from taking part, even just at the level of performing their civic duty and not necessarily belonging to any political party or the other?
I think it is a mindset. I understand a lot of Cameroonians when they have problems when it comes to politics. I understand them. It's not easy to be 45 years old and you have been under the government of a single president. It's not easy. I know what it means for you to grow up singing the name of a particular person as the parliamentarian in your constituency, or the name of a single person as the mayor in your municipal council area, singing the name of a single person as the president of the republic for more than 4 decades. It's half a century. It's not easy.
In a situation, in a context where we are able to have potable water,
exactly,
unable to have good electricity,
good
roads, healthcare,
exactly,
and all whatnot.
So, in this kind of environment, you understand that the system in place built its political structure and its political message around power conservation. But they are not going to tell Cameroonians that their ideal interest is power conservation. But this is manifested and it is seen on daily life. However, I am one of those people who thinks so positive to the extent that I believe in the 1% that is remaining for something to happen. I am optimistic to that point that I think the remaining 1%, politics is science. It's not imaginary. People should stop mystifying politics and making it to feel as if it was meant for other forms of human not existing on the earth that me and you, Mr. Babila, we belong to. These are human beings who have fears. These are human beings who have limitations. These are human beings with limited thinking capacity. And these are human beings that have only few decades to be on earth like any of us. Of course, what they have put in place can also be put out of place. It has happened. Congolese did not believe in the days of Mobutu when they were singing and chanting his name, and during every news broadcast, his image came from the cloud like a god, and they thought he was immortal. They even sang that he was immortal. But when the day came, he became feeble, weak, and just like any other human being, tantamount to his own weaknesses, and another person had to come in place. It is not only in Cameroon that we have seen someone staying too long in power and leaving it. It's as easy as everyone knowing their civic and political rights. It's as easy as everyone reading the Constitution of Cameroon into details and knowing exactly those points of the Constitution that protect them nationally and internationally. Knowing all the details of the Electoral Code with its lapses in order to have an argument against those people. The problem here is the dichotomy between those who are informed and the number of people who are informed to cause what we call the rapport de force with the state. Because those as informed as myself amongst the young people that form the larger percentage of our population are really very few. So the people's power do not require few of the population to measure up with those managing state institutions and have monopoly of violence using the military. It requires a very large number or chunk of the population constituting these people we call youths being able to come together and say, we are taking back our power. We surrender to you in the foundation of the state in what we call the social contract, so that we could redefine the basis of living together again as a state. This is citizen-state relationship. So for me, it is a possibility, Mr. Babila, that we can be able to put aside the current system by so many political means that are available in our disposition to explore.
It is a possibility, but there's an issue of trust that seems to be a major barrier to this possibility. Many Cameroonians today do not trust politicians anymore. They do not trust politicians. Why? Because of some of the politicians who have presented to them two faces, so to speak, a double face for some of them. Many Cameroonians today still say that the late national chairman of the SDF, Nijon Fundi, failed them, even though he has said over and over that he decided not to work on the blood, on the corpses of Cameroonians to enter the presidency. That is why he didn't go for war or fighting to claim his victory in 1992. But today, many Cameroonians are still saying, no, he failed us. He took money left and right. He should have done this. And when you look at the way Cameroonians perceive politicians today, there is practically no trust.
Yeah.
Many of them don't trust any of you politicians who are speaking
This is true, yeah.
Here and there. And more to that, because when we look at some cases like Jean de Dieu Momo,
Yeah.
was a hard critic
of the government.
Now he turned around and he's the minister delegate at the to the Minister of Justice,
Yeah.
and he's now singing another song.
Yeah.
When we look at Jean-Jacques Ekindi of the Progressive Movement Party, who was known as the Chasseur de Lion,
Yeah.
the lion hunter,
Yeah.
who was turned around and is now more or less
Part of the system.
part of the system, a friend to the lion that he was hunting yesterday.
Yeah.
And there are many examples like this. So what can you say to bring Cameroonians to this level of trust that you politicians need to pull them along, because you need them to bring about the change?
Exactly. I agree with you on some of the analysis that you've made, and my message to Cameroonians has ever been the same. You need to know existing political leaders and do a track record of their activities. You can only be trust with someone you know what they are doing on weekly basis, on monthly basis, on yearly basis. And then you do a track record. Because the issue here also is sharing a very brief experience. I was in Yaoundé, invited by a young lady in the political participation workshop. So I decided to do this workshop in a way as to take the images of political leaders from the 70s till present according to generation and present to them. So these are young people that they already start to participate in this workshop by basis of being at the voting age, and also by basis of having committed themselves to one community service or the other. During the presentation of the images, I was surprised that out of about 45 images, none of the young people in the hall was able to identify up to about 5 to 10 names from the list of young people, the list of political actors that are presented. This is to say that it's still a stereotype declaration where there is no sufficient information check about people, and then there is no follow-up of who is standing for what, because there are people whose interest is just the parliamentary seat, and then they are securing that area. Let me take, for example, like the party of Pierre Nkwemo, UMS, at Bafang area, securing that area for himself, and then making his party activities to be at that area, like UDC, always in Fumban, and some other examples that you know. Now, at the level of judging or trying to analyze these political leaders, you have to look at them on the basis of what they are able to achieve in this particular environment based on their campaign promises and what you can see on the field. But also, people need to understand the difficulties politicians face in Cameroon, because even those who are represented in the institution as parliamentarians and mayors are supervised by appointed DUs and SDUs. This becomes very difficult for you to fulfill your campaign promises when, as an elected person with direct universal suffrage from the people, you are supervised by an appointed person who wants to apply strictly the administrative decisions of his hierarchy, which is the president of the republic. Another issue is that the issue of trust is also because some politicians have had huge support of the people, but during elections, very few of these people have the card to go and decide. So this also breaks the confidence between the people and the politician. So the roles and responsibility need to be balanced between the people and the politicians. But of course, politicians have a lot of responsibilities. I agree, and I am facing this every day in the field. Yes, when I go to faculties of law and political science in most of our university, it's not easy to open the conversation because a lot of negativity has been built around that.
Right. About you, Fabrice,
we are taking it gradually to build
about
the trust.
You, for some time now, you've been out of public view. You've not been very much present in the media landscape as you were before. And some started asking the question. Some people who have been following you up with your media interventions started asking the question, has Fabrice Lena been compromised? Has he been taken away from us like others? What were you doing during that time?
Exactly. I think in 2022, I established a plan of action as the one managing the National General Secretariat of the Popular Action Party. So 2023 was the year for what I call the Civic Engagement and Political Participation Project. So I draw a plan of action for 8 months, January to August, and I had to make sure I'm the one implementing these activities on ground. So meanwhile, I have to deal with managing the political party. I have to deal with managing my own professional activities. I'm a consultant to many international organizations. I'm a teacher, and then I manage businesses. So I had a lot of responsibilities that I have to reduce the number of time I go to the TV on weekly basis, on monthly basis, and on yearly basis. This was the plan for 2023 and 2024. And this is why most of the media outings of 2023 in particular were in Yaoundé. And in other sister TV stations, I had always been present because this is my area of residence. So I had very limited time. And secondly, 2023 was also the time for me to make international outings, because that's the time I had a lot of trips abroad in order to rekindle hope with the diaspora in the project I call Rekindling Hope in the Diaspora. So just to add one point, the issue of compromise is far from being in my agenda, because I joined politics in order to do change. And when I talk about change, it's not sectorial reforms. It is change at the hem of the state and all its structures. And until this is done, you will not see the name of Fabrice Lena in any appointment that has to do with this system that is existing in Yaoundé. This is an interview on TV. You can, of course, mark it and keep for record.
You've just answered my next question. Now we'll go to the newsstands and we'll take a look at what the newspapers reported in Cameroon this week. This is the press review. The Horizon reports Nkambe suffers another security breach. That part of the Donga Mantum division in the northwest region of Cameroon had been enjoying relative peace before the attack on students 11 February 2024 and the recent incident in Jab, where more than 10 motorbikes were set ablaze and 2 teachers abducted and later released. In an exclusive interview granted to The Sun, civil society leader Barrister Agbo Bala speaks the truth to the government, separatists and the opposition. He says, I quote, "Armed struggle is not working. It has failed and has destroyed us as a people. The government thinks it is winning the war, but that is far from it. This is the last authoritarian regime to rule the country. The Senegalese example is not too far from us. We have to register and vote massively." End of quote. The Guardian Post reports the confession of arrested graduate of the National School of Administration and Magistracy, ENAM, who admitted to have killed his grandmother at the reenacting of the macabre crime that squeezed life out of his mother. On the front page of the Herald Tribune, bishops strike government over high cost of living at the 49th Plenary Assembly. They called for a transparent use of the country's natural resources, reiterated their rejection of same-sex marriage, and urged Cameroonians to massively enroll on the electoral register. The call for massive registration is also echoed by Municipal Update, The Median, and Echo Outlook. The Horizon highlights the bishop's concerns about increasing murder in Cameroon. Newswatch quotes the president of the National Episcopal Conference of Cameroon, His Grace Archbishop Andrew Kia, saying, "Seek ye first peace, and justice shall be added unto you." As reported by The Post, Bamenda City Mayor Achobang Paul has accused former government delegate Vincent Dumunji and other persons of embezzling hundreds of millions of francs CFA meant for the Bamenda Main Market project. In an exclusive interview, the general manager of the Southwest Development Authority, Soweda, speaks out the organ's strides and constraints to municipal updates. The Guardian Post reports that as the leadership tussle in the Cameroon Party for National Reconciliation drags on, the anti-Cabra Libi faction announces a congress. Thank you for staying with us. Fabrice Lena, the founder of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, Barrister Agbo Bala, says this is the end of an authoritarian regime to rule Cameroon. What is your take on this?
I agree with Barrister Agbo Bala 100%. Of course, I've made this same analysis in my political participation workshop. I said that this is the end of the start for Cameroon to enjoy constitutional democracy. We are not going to have such a group of people that will hijack the country again for such a very long time, that have pushed the citizens to the elastic limit of patience to rebuild their country. I agree with him.
Right, and before we go for a little further to talk about the calls for Cameroonians to register and how important this is to the efforts to bring about change in Cameroon, Barrister Agbo Bala, speaking to The Sun, he also said about the Anglophone crisis that guns have failed. Guns have failed and have destroyed us as a people, and guns will not produce the result. And he also said this, talking to the separatists, and then to government he said, government thinks it is winning the war, but far from it.
I will start with the government, of course. The government keeps deceiving itself that an internal conflict is to be won by an armed conflict against its people. So the government is challenging the very fact of protection of citizens. The government is not protecting the citizens, it's rather persecuting the citizens to become stateless citizens. And this is what has happened in the context of the Anglophone crisis. And I will agree again with him on the issue of the government thinking that it's winning the war, but it's far from it, because it's an ideological issue that can come after generations and generations to come, because it's ideological and it's embedded in history. So there are things that need to be handled with a lot of caution. And as a politician, I know and I have my own suggestions to put on the table if I have the capacity to manage this country that will resolve the root cause of the crisis and will bring appeasement to people that have suffered losses in the context of this crisis. It must be managed with effective leadership that takes into consideration the aspiration of minorities or specific people in the management and the structuring of the country. This is the birth of a new political order where there will be no appointed governors, DUs and STUs, and there will be no such persons that will be supervising the activities of elected mayors, elected parliamentarians, and of course what they call regional councillors will be obtaining their mandate from the people by direct universal suffrage, and as such they have the capacity to manage projects within their regions.
Now, about the guns, especially the guns in the hands of civilians, which Barrister Abu Bala says these guns have failed. These guns have destroyed us as a people, us referring to Anglophones or Cameroonians from the northwest and southwest regions.
I think a country should not at any point in time permit for civilians to have access to gun, because it's very easy to get access to it, but to take it back, it becomes very difficult. And I agree again to say gun never helps in reality to solve problems, but aggravate them with enormous consequences that is unmeasurable. And this is what we have lived in the context of the Anglophone crisis. And I will also submit to those who think that gun is the way forward, that this is a wrong strategy, because this is going to inflict self-pain, and in the long run, no one in any part of the world is going to recognize whatever thing you are doing there. The international community is so complex that people are concerned with bigger wars than internal conflicts of a country.
All right. Now, let's talk about the calls rising to the sky. Cameroonians urged to register, to get a voter's card, and eventually vote when the time comes. How strategic is it, this issue of registration? How strategic is it in terms of bringing about the necessary change that is needed in this country?
From the research that my office conducted in relation to 2011 presidential elections, 2013 local elections, 2018 presidential elections, 2020 local elections, we realized that 2011 presidential election had more voters than 2018 presidential elections, and Anglophone crisis was a major factor. Now, by 2022, we have seen the dynamics of the crisis, and we say, hey, if we leave 2025 to pass by again, this will be this will be a serious blunder on our side, because presidential elections in Cameroon are conducted after 7 years. So we have to educate the people to understand the necessity of participating. And the first element is the voters registration. And because during the voters registration, the manner of conduct of election, how to protect votes, how to fight against the mechanism of rigging, it's going to be presented. And also that the process permit us to get psychologically prepared of how to be in a participative and constitutional democracy when the current system is out of place. Because not participating will mean we have limited knowledge of how to run a democracy. And when they will go out, what next? Cameroonians will be completely blank on how to do things. So participation is to stay informed. Participation is to get to an office. Participation is to prevent whatever calamity that can arise from not participating. And also participation gives the experience which is needed for citizens to pass through the process of change from an authoritarian regime to a consolidated democracy.
Now, in a system like Cameroon, how strategic is the vote of a Cameroonian?
It's Very important.
The vote of each and every Cameroonian.
It is very important. I think the Elecam statistics for 2023 talked about 7,700,000 people who have registered already. So when you look at it, there is always a dichotomy between those who have actually registered and those who vote. In 2018, we saw 3 million actually voting. So we need to know that the higher the vote, the lesser the mechanism of rigging. The lower the vote, the higher the chances of rigging. Because a rigging machination, it's very easy when there are low rates of participation. And when there is a lot of people who come out massively to vote and who are informed of how to protect their vote, this helps to reduce the ability of the rigging process and makes the probability of a win for the candidate that stands to challenge the party in power. And also plays on the issue of coalition, because coalition becomes possible when the rate of voters registration is high, and at that point it permits the citizens to have the enthusiasm, the hope for change, because they know many people, high probability of a change, less people, low probability of a change.
Right, we're going to take some interviews right now, and we'll be back in some few minutes. Stay with us.
They have never organized any bar exams and ended before 1 a.m. In 2003, when we wrote, we ended at 1:30. Those that came after us were worse. We were not up to 1,000 candidates. But we're talking today about 5,321. There were two exams. Yes, the entrance exams into pupillage and the end of stage exams. We had two candidates who were visually impaired. When we did all the questions, everything was said, we had to send their own for the Braille. There was one candidate who uses Braille, and there was one who had a note taker. We had somebody to go there to read out the question to this candidate. Those are all the things that we had to do. There were some halls in Lycée de Clerc that did not have bulbs. Some did not have provision for bulbs. We could not start in Yaoundé 1 and Enam, whereas Lycée de Clerc was not ready. So at that material moment, they had to look for electricians. We bought bulbs to make sure that everything was put in place.
I don't have time for any distraction, because I know when you are doing something to God's glory, be very sure that you must have detractors, even people who persecute you. I don't look at them, I laugh, because if all these years they have not succeeded in collapsing me, because when you stand for values, those core moral values of justice, equity, love, transparency and accountability, which are rare, truth, integrity, dignity and honor, the fear of the Lord. So many of us lie a lot. So when you talk about it, when you are telling the truth, just know that you cannot be loved. So many people lie, and they enjoy lies. They sleep with lies, they eat lies, they embrace lies, they kiss lies. But I tell you, the truth will set you free. And I've been on the field, and I'll continue to be on the field. If the Lord gives me, of course, He's been giving me the strength, the energy, and the wherewithal to continue to do work in His vineyard. I'm not doing it to please man, but to please God.
I think that people talk about hate speech and they keep on doing it is because people don't know. Because we should reflect before we say what we want to say and know that it will hurt. We all want to build a country. We should avoid annoying each other and hurting each other. I think also that one of the things that we need to do is to install love. Love is very important for all of us.
You welcome back. Those were interviews of the week. Now, Fabrice Lena, are you telling Cameroonians today, especially those ones who have falling into disappointment, hopelessness, despair, pessimism. They feel that nothing is going to change. Their votes will be rigged. Their voices will not count because of the system in place, because of what's been happening for the past decades. Are you telling them that there is going to be change, or we can make the change, or they can make the change, they can provoke the change that they need?
Dear Cameroonians, I keep saying, we are capable, we are able to make the change. If Cameroonians register massively, identify the faces to put in front of the numerous elections that are coming in 2025, we have the capacity to change the political narrative of Cameroon. If you register massively with a courageous and charismatic candidate to lead the people's list, we will be able to have a change in Cameroon. If Nigerians were able to mobilize massively and stand behind Peter Obi, and today Labour Party having a lot of representatives in the House of Representatives in Nigeria and a lot of senators and governors, then parties also in Cameroon who are in the opposition can be able in 2025 to occupy parliamentary seats, municipal councils, as the foundation of the 2025 presidential elections that is coming in October, and there's high probability for change to take place. If Senegalese, after experiencing the leaderships of old guys like Abdoulaye Wade, Abdou Diouf, are able today to have a 44-year-old young, vibrant Faye in power, then Cameroonians too have the capacity to say enough is enough, and you rally behind a political party, a candidate or group of political parties that have come together, or group of leaders that have merged together, and then we will be able to obtain this change. You should know the electoral calendar of Cameroon, because local elections come before presidential elections, and we need to be vigilant of the government and Yaoundé not changing or inversing the electoral calendar. This is very important. I would like to remind you that the argument of Senegalese was on the basis of change of electoral calendar, and the constitution of Cameroon is very clear with support of the electoral code about expiry of mandate of municipal councillors and parliamentarians. According to the electoral code, parliamentarians are not supposed to be voted 40 days later than the expiry date of their mandate, and for municipal councillors 20 days before expiry of their mandate, which means that Cameroonians are supposed to be expecting local twin elections in February 2025. We do not have to let this calendar to be altered. That will be the beginning of our weakness as a people, and we must make sure more parties enter in the parliament so that 2025 presidential elections in October will be the turning point of Cameroon history. I am up to save the people, to stand with you, and to lead the crowd of the young people if need be.
Right, let's wrap up with this heartbreaking issue of the founder and former president of your political party, the PAP. I'm talking about former Supreme Court Judge, Justice Ayapol Abine, who is being deprived of his pension, of his savings, his bank accounts freezed after he was arrested and detained for over 200 days and later released without charges. And today he's crying out loud about what he considers and qualifies as extrajudicial killing. What do you think about this?
This is a serious issue, and I think as a militant of the Popular Action Party, and in my capacity as the Secretary General that have served this party for the number of years that I've been in this office, I have taken it upon myself to mobilize my fellow legal minds. On this note, I want to appreciate Barrister Tamfo Richard, who have taken upon himself to fight for this case, because he also listened to the story of our former national president, Justice Ayapol, it is really a call for concern that such a man, after serving his country at all levels, in all capacity, from court of first instance to the Supreme Court as a parliamentarian, to be unable to have access to his own rightful earnings in a bank that's on the basis of his account being freezed. This is total injustice to an old man who is supposed to enjoy his retirement age. That is why we are taking this case into the local courts, and if need be, we will take it to the international court. We are engaging a lawsuit against BSEC, and they must give us tangible reasons why the accounts are still freezed till now, and from there we will continue with this case till we find a solution to this particular problem. And my encouragement to Justice Ayapol Abine, I will also and always be there to give my own meaningful contribution to this case until we find a solution to it.
Fabrice Lena, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Sir Babila. I am grateful for the interview. It was a wonderful one. I will always appreciate being your guest.
Thank you. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today's edition of the program. You can follow us on our YouTube channel, also on Facebook, and you can follow the rebroadcast of the program on Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you so much for your time. Do stay with us on Equinox Television. Goodbye.